Good morning, everyone. We will be presenting our space and development on fine motor skills within an arts corner. I would now like to acknowledge the country in which we stand. In recognition of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spiritual and cultural connection to country, and in continuing ACU's commitment to reconciliation, it is customary to acknowledge country as we pass through. Today we acknowledge and pay our respects to our First People, the traditional owners and custodians of the lands and waterways. We thank them for their continued custodianship. We acknowledge and celebrate the continuation of a living culture that has a unique role in this region. We acknowledge elders past and present and thank them for their wisdom and guidance as we walk in their footsteps. Our group will be focusing on fine motor skills in the arts corner, as mentioned at the start, specifically with the 3 to 5 year old age group and children in early childhood. The learning outcomes from the EYF will be reflected throughout the presentation, mainly through outcome 3.
Fine motor skills refers to a skill that is characterized by the manipulation of small muscles in the hands, fingers, and feet. When a child develops these skills, they are able to engage in writing tasks where they have to use both their eye and hand to write along the straight line. Children gradually develop these skills through experiencing different materials and activities. Furthermore, Mergetz and Wolf of 2019 say that children between the ages of 12 to 24 months and 6 years are at this stage of developing their fine motor skills, such as feeding themselves independently, cutting with scissors properly, buttoning, zipping, and drawing. The Art Corner is a space where educators facilitate children's active participation in art activities where they assist them with the creative process, such as painting, drawing, and working with clay. Children may also use it to develop and explore ideas and skills based on a specific theme or project. There are materials and resources available in this space to facilitate children's artistic processes, including scissors, markers, coloring pencils, crayons, paint, different types of paper, rulers, glue, and clay. Furthermore, it is where children's creations such as paintings, drawings, sculptures, and photographs with or without words are on display as their works of art. Seafrill et al. 2018 asserted that in supporting children's fine motor development, it is imperative that educators allow children time to practice their skills in a spontaneous process. This will provide opportunities for children to continue the task where they left from. Children's fine motor skills can further develop by cutting papers or leaves with scissors, engaging in modeling clay, and drawing and painting on smaller surfaces. Educators also have to be aware of children's capability with fine motor development to assist them effectively. This can be assessed by using questioning as a strategy, where an educator can use open-ended questions as they interact with the children. Thus, educators will gain knowledge of children's strengths, as well as scaffolding in their learning to construct learning together. Arthur et al. 2021 also state that providing feedback on children's learning is critical for their development. Through this, they will feel a sense of support, build confidence, and foster a sense of belonging. For instance, as children engage in cutting paper, the educator could say, "I really like how you carefully followed the line and cut the paper. You're working so hard on that." Depending on children's fine motor skill development level, the educator can alternate different strategies to cater to their learning needs. Facilitating is another strategy educators can implement to promote children's dispositions for learning. It involves the educator intentionally preparing resources and materials, as well as creating an environment to cater for children to have an authentic experience. During their engagement in their art activity, for example, painting between two parallel lines, using a paintbrush, the educator can initiate conversations around how they play with their hands and fingers to ensure that only between the line is painted. Doing so will further encourage children to inquire and solve problems with the educator or their peers on different ways to paint and use their fine motor skills.
Quality Area 1 indicates the importance of educational programs and practice to support children to reach the best outcome in their learning. To plan meaningful, thoughtful, and effective practice, which is intentional teaching, it is important to consider following components: Communication can be powerful collecting information source. Communication with families, children, and co-workers will provide key information such as children's developmental stage and their current interests, which teachers must consider for their activity planning. Observing how children represent their knowledge and skills during the learning environment is also important. Teachers can identify each child's strength and weakness through the continuous observation, and it will allow teachers to support each child's individual needs through the planned activity. Also, the reflection on previous and current activities and teaching strategies is important for further modification. Teachers should reflect on their current practice based on verbal and nonverbal feedback to identify its effectiveness. Teachers should acknowledge that planning effective teaching practice needs time allowance. Teachers need to be mindful that planning effective strategies are not short-term goal, it is a long-term goal. To create effective teaching strategies for students, teachers should include all individual learners with consideration of equality and equity. Teachers should consider how they can support each student to meet their learning goal effectively and meet their right to learn. Okay, these developmental milestone criteria for physical skills indicate that children should be able to have their hand manipulation, hand preference, wrist flexibility, also eye-hand coordination skills. This guideline can support teachers to be aware of children's developmental stage and can identify the level of the standard that children need to meet at their age. Teachers should use this guideline as their teaching goal to make sure each child reaches their standard learning goal. And here are some examples of physical art spaces that support children's fine motor skills, not only for fine motor skills, but also for holistic learning. It is important to have an art corner with various resources, including natural materials and recycled materials. As children access the art area with various solid materials, it will allow children to become active participants.
In an early childhood classroom or kindergarten setting, fine motor skills are most fostered through the creative arts. Educators provide an enriching arts experience by listening to children's interests and taking that on board, sourcing a variety of materials and having them set up in easy access for children to use. Having resources readily available to children gives them the freedom to choose in play and allows them agency to explore their world through tactile or kinesthetic means. Having resources central on tables in front of them encourages children to interact with each other and builds on their social skills by collaborating and doing hands-on learning together. This also helps children build positive relationships with peers. In outcome 3 of EYLF, it states children engage in increasingly complex sensory motor skills and movement patterns. They combine gross and fine motor movement and balance to achieve increasingly complex patterns of activity. Common materials to help build strength and muscle movement in their hands include things like paper they can scrunch, tear, fold, and bend, glue they can grip, scissors that work on cutting motion, and pencils, crayons, textures, or paintbrushes of varied sizes that teach children pencil grip integral for future schooling years. Other types of materials educators could consider sourcing and implementing in the classroom include a range of textural things that have a particular feel that children are interested in. Those items that are fluffy, gooey, rough, sticky, or intriguing to the touch spark interest and engagement for children to want to pick up. This enables them to hold, squish, roll, flatten, maneuver, or manipulate the materials in their hands to further make a meaning. Diversity in art materials and making the space visually aesthetic to the eye for children will further entice them to create with art mediums. Considering vibrant colors and a range of shapes and sizes will draw the learner to the art corner, and then to those materials which will further fine motor skills. Other materials perfect for the development of children's fine motor skills could include Play-Doh, cookie cutters and rolling pin, cotton balls, shaving cream, and environmental elements like water, seashells, sticks, leaves, and gum nuts to better connect children with the natural world.
How to plan for these practical components. Teachers should ensure that they are following the curriculum, ensuring that they maintain classroom rules and norms, implementing appropriate teaching strategies. Ensuring each activity is accessible for all students. For example, if there is a child with additional needs, ensuring they have equipment or resources that can be adapted to meet their needs. The use of visual instructions or explanation for EAL students or students with intellectual disabilities. Setting up the layout of the space to ensure social collaboration. This could be displaying the tables and chairs to ensure that engagement of children, making the environment engaging through colour and organised equipment, displaying the artwork and allowing students to work with their peers. Having a look at the centre's art cupboard or storage before purchasing more supplies. A quote from Edward states that teachers depend on carefully prepared, aesthetically pleasing environments that serve as a pedagogical tool and provide strong messages about the curriculum and about respect for children. This supports Reggio Emilia's approach towards children and meeting the needs and displaying and engaging students on experiences which follow their interests. This can be achieved through forming relationships with students, partnering with parents, and working alongside other staff members. How this supports positive behaviour. Within the Arts Corner, with a focus on fine motor skills, positive behaviour is supported through reciprocal respect. Educators can model this respect. As children observe and become familiar with the occurrers in their life, they will mimic this value and become reciprocated. Acknowledging that children have rights to participate, to complete a task, or to choose the colour pencil they want. Children enact their sense of agency through freedom of choice. Limiting the use of reward systems such as stickers and affection, for example, hugs. Avoiding expressions like good boy or good girl. Other than the obvious gender bias, saying a student is good or has done a good job is verbal affirmation with limited acknowledgement of the task. Instead, educators, if they want to acknowledge a student's work, say, I really like the way you use that shade of blue to outline the water within your artwork. And finally, reflecting on being and becoming and belonging through teaching. The EYLF encourages teachers and provides outcomes that educators can implement in various ways in the classroom. For example, in the Arts Corner, which is our focus space, educators can emphasize being through exploring the world and relationships, express becoming through identity, children's knowledge and capacities, and can support children's belonging through cultural and acknowledging of important events through artwork.
I'll be speaking on behalf of Matilda. She is linking two theoretical perspectives. It promotes pro-social behaviour and positive behaviour. Intentional setup and use of materials allowing children to build relationships and social skills, displaying forms of altruistic behaviours such as empathy, cooperation, and sharing. There is little interference by the educators supporting that children are capable learners. Erickson's stages of development suggest that as children take on initiation, they learn through trial and error that their actions affect not only themselves, but also others.
This is our summary. So it says creating a space where children are free to express their ideas and develop new skills, having a range of materials that promote fine motor skill movements such as scissor, paintbrush, glue, and clay. So children are developing skills such as hand-eye coordination and fine muscular movements, interacting intentionally where appropriate to support further growth without manipulating the children's idea. And this is our reference and finish. Thank you.